Hello and welcome to episode 2 of The Pastor and the Pappy. Today, we are going to do a show titled Close to Home, and I have a good buddy with me who happens to be a pastor. His name is Doug McCoy.
Hey, how you doing, Kev?
Good. Thank you so much again for joining me, as I am thankful that I am joining you.
Yeah, thanks in return. Vice versa, or versa versa, I suppose. You're joining me. I'm not sure whose show this is, you know.
I know. I'm just wondering the same thing. I think it's a 50-50. I think we are.
I think so. Dumb Things was mine, you know. Please Stand By was yours. But I think this one is ours. So
This is our baby.
Yes, there you go.
Well, The Pastor and the Pappy is a podcast in which two guys, one a pastor and the other pappy, talk about God and their walks with God.
Absolutely. That's what this show is about. And we have a fun time doing it, I think.
I think so, too. We have a very good time doing it.
The Pastor
and the Pappy.
And last time we were together, we talked a lot about the pastor aspect, and I gave probably more backstory to me than people really need, and a little bit of your, side of your walk with God. We didn't really touch on the pappy part.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Did you want to talk about how, I'm the pastor, you're the pappy? Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, bottom line, I'm a grandpa. I have a daughter who lives here. Her name is Katrina. She lives up here in Connecticut. She went to college in Connecticut. We were down in Virginia at the time. And after she got married, she married a gentleman who we all love dearly. And he got a master's and he's a teacher. And he makes lots of money. And that's what's important. You want your daughter to have somebody who makes lots of money in Connecticut. So she's doing well. And they got married and had a beautiful daughter. And as soon as that happened, Shelley and I looked at each other and said, we've got to move up to Connecticut. So we moved up here to Connecticut, and I became a pappy instantly. And as we were here, they decided to have another child. And now I am a pappy of two beautiful grandchildren, Eli and Jocelyn. Love them to death.
Okay, so those are your two grandchildren. How many kids do you have?
We have two daughters.
Okay.
Two daughters. Now, these are stepdaughters. These are not my original offsprings.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think I can have my own original offsprings for two reasons. Number one,
the government won't allow it.
The government won't allow it. And number two, when you spin the Russian roulette wheel of life,
yes,
you take what you get. And I don't think I am capable physically of having any children. So it's more of an MS thing. And also, these two are better than probably what would happen if I attempted to have my own children. And I love them to death. I swear to you, it's the best kids I could ever ask for. Caitlin and what was it, Katrina? And the family just keeps growing, and it's amazing. But I grew up with on both sides of my family, step-grandfathers. And they were always called Pappies. So I took the name Pappy. I said, please call me Pappy. And now when I go to the door, Shelley will walk in front of me. The kids will come running from all angles. And all you hear is, Pappy, 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 Pappy.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
Well, that's it. I mean, my dad is not my biological dad. I never knew my biological dad, never met him. Wouldn't know him if I passed him on the show. I'm not sure he's alive. There's some weird story my mom has told me about a guy she dated who was obsessed with death, and she's never really told me the whole story. I think he's probably my biological father. But mom married my dad, I think around 84, so I was about 10. He's the only dad I've ever known. And so my grandfather's or my daughter's pappy is what I'm trying to say. My daughter's grandfather, my dad, isn't her biological grandfather, but she loves him just the same. And I think of us, and maybe you can think of yourself the same way. I think of my family as a patchwork quilt. You know, I would have loved to have the Family Ties family where mom married dad and they stayed married forever, and all your grandparents are biological. But even if your parents don't divorce, your grandpa could die like mine did, and your grandma marry somebody else. So,
Right.
All of us are a patchwork quilt to one degree or the other. And I like to say, as I say in the wedding ceremony, what God has put together, let not man tear asunder. The Lord put you together. He put your family together so that you could be the pappy to these boy and girl, right? Eli and Jocelyn. Okay,
Yep.
so
I love them to death.
And if that doesn't sell it for you, the picture that you have on Facebook of Jocelyn punching you in the face, that is how you guys tie. I mean, I'm assuming that's staged. I'm assuming that she wasn't really clocking you and the camera just happened to catch it at that moment. But
no, she did clock me before that. And I said, Jocelyn, put your fist back up and I'll push harder, because she was just playing around.
Yeah.
She was trying to pop the bubble I had in my mouth. I was going, when you go,
oh, yeah.
you punch out the air. And I said, hold your fist there. And I pushed a little harder. And I said, now look angry at the camera. And she looked angry at the camera. And then,
she does. She looks like she's giving it to you. So
she did a good job. But yeah, and that's one thing. And whenever I introduce the kids out, I skip the whole step thing, and they do the same thing. And I love that. It seems closer because you kind of have to work a little harder. It seems to me. I don't know. I've never had kids, but I would think you'd have to work a little harder because these don't belong to you. And there's times you're just like, hey, my fault. That is not my trait. So,
yeah.
I didn't do that.
Well, and that's, I never call my dad my stepdad. He has earned that title. He's
Exactly.
the only dad I ever knew. He took care of me when lots of guys wouldn't take care of me. Mm-hmm. I feel blessed to have a guy that was willing to stand up and say, I'm going to take care of this kid, even though he's not mine.
Exactly.
And so he doesn't deserve to be called. To me, and not to judge anybody else's family or the way anybody else talks.
Right.
But when you say, step, it's kind of like saying, yeah, not my real dad. My dad is my real dad. He may not be my biological dad, but he has earned the distinction, such as it is, of being my real dad.
And it's awesome because you learned to be a pastor from him.
In the beginning, yeah. I mean, I would not be what I am without. I would probably be in jail, honestly, if I wasn't. If it was without him, I'd probably be in jail. I mean, we grew up in white people projects. I mean, we grew up in low income housing. I was always getting in fights. It's not hard to imagine that I would have gotten, even though I was always the timid obedient kid.
Yeah,
it's not hard to imagine I could have gotten involved in some sort of white collar crime. So I mean, it's an easy buck sounds awful good sometimes,
Yeah.
And so I'm just thankful for his influence, and he is my dad. He doesn't deserve to be called anything else. He deserves to be called my dad.
Now, reflecting back on something you just said about marrying people, and then you say, "May God not tear asunder."
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me again what sunder means, because when I heard it the first time from when Shelley and I got married. I always thought that meant, please don't pull us under. Pull us under or tear us apart. And
it's apart, not under, but apart. Let not man tear asunder. I mean, it's an older, colloquialism, I guess, but I believe it means to tear apart.
Good.
And something, depending, some people will ask me to contemporize the language of the wedding ceremony, and so that's what I would say. Let not man tear apart. But the idea is, God has put this together. You have committed yourselves to each other, agreeing with the plans of God. Let nobody come in and divide, separate the plans of God.
Has anyone ever said to you, can you please rewrite it to the point that you say, God, don't let them start going different ways because we can't afford that with the taxes?
Yeah. No, I will only go so far. There's a wedding that I did not officiate that I witnessed where their wedding vows were like, hey, if zombies attack and I'm in, so I tell people, you can do what you want, but if you're asking me to do your service, I prefer no zombies. We're going to be pretty close to tradition. If you want to contemporize the language somewhat, but we're going to be pretty close to tradition. Speaking of that, though, I mean, not to get into politics, and we're kind of going a little far afield, but Bernie Sanders, who has been eliminated from contention.
I know.
In the presidential race. But I saw this clip of him in a movie where he's doing this speech at a wedding, and it was hilarious. And I mean, he was doing it very well. And he gets off topic and he starts talking about free agency in baseball or something like that. I don't know what movie it was, but it's hilarious that he's doing this, this wedding speech at the reception, and he starts talking about free agency in baseball. It's just kind of reminds me of my podcast.
And it reminds me of Leslie Nielsen to a T, that type of aspect. So that's great. Well, let me ask you this. What is today's cultural artifact? And now it's time for the cultural artifact.
All right. Well, a cultural artifact is a current event or incident which connects in some way with our walks with God. That's what we're talking about in this podcast. That's the general gist, is that we are guys that walk with God. I call that walking with God. That's probably my favorite term. But living the life of faith is another. Following Jesus, being a disciple of Jesus, being a believer of Jesus. Those are all synonymous. We are two guys like that. Mm-hmm. And there are things that happen in our lives that touch up on that, some in positive ways, some in negative ways. And that's what we talk about in this podcast. Now, last time we did three things that just happened to happen on the day we were recording, which was first Monday night football game, the publication of The Hobbit, and what was the third one? Do you remember?
Eggs Benedict.
Oh, Benedict Arnold. Yeah, that's right. There was a fourth one which we missed. Well, the first day of autumn was something that we threw in there. But also there's a fourth one we missed. That was the day when C.S. Lewis was converted, when C.S. Lewis became a Christian. And C.S. Lewis is one of my heroes, one of my mentors in the faith. I've read all his books. I've read many of them multiple times. Yeah. The Great Divorce. In my mind, it goes the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, and C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce as the great written works of all time. And we have a guy that comes around. His name's Max McLean, and he tours the country doing Lewis-oriented plays. And last year, he always does it the week before my vacation, so it's always a great way to start my vacation. We go to this little it's not little. It's an auditorium or a art center that we have just down the street. They got 3 or 4 auditoriums in there, and he packs one of them. Even in secular San Francisco area, he packs this theater. So I'm always we always take a church group, and I'm always telling them, buy your tickets now because we will be shut out. But he did the Screw Tape Letters, and he did the Great Divorce, which I hope the Great Divorce gets turned into a movie someday. But last year he did C.S. Lewis, The Most Reluctant Convert, and he took bits of Lewis's biography, Surprised by Joy, and some other of Lewis's writings, and put them together into a monologue describing the way that Lewis became a believer, and it was incredible. And I wish they offered a DVD of that, because I would watch that multiple times. But so the last time we recorded, I wish we would have known, but that is the day when Lewis, as he describes it, came kicking and screaming, dragged into the belief that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and has had an impact upon the people of God ever since. So that certainly would have been something to mention. This one we found, I think, the day after we recorded, and we've been waiting 2 weeks to get to this one. When as soon as I saw this, I said, this is what we've got to do. But this is an article. I'm reading it through a website called Get Religion, which is a religious site. I mean, clearly the people that operate it are believers, but they're not as much promoting the faith as they are critiquing the way that faith is underreported and unfairly reported in national and global media. Right. And so they are commenting on an article from the Boston Globe, which I think by now is about 2 weeks old. This article would have come out September 20-something, 2016. But it's telling us that a new satanic temple is being set up in Salem, Massachusetts, which, of course, is the site of the infamous witch trial. So right there, you have a whole conglomerate of things that we would have whispered about on the playground. To go back to our dumb things days, these are like the urban legends that would be spread around the grade school, middle school playground. Hey, satanic temples and Salem witch trials and all that stuff. But no, seriously, a satanic temple is being planted, established, I'm not exactly sure, in that area. I guess intentionally so. They feel like that's an appropriate place for. I'm not sure that they explain that. I think that they are thinking that, the Christians, they're the fascist Christians killed a bunch of free-spirited witches, and now we're coming back. They do say that the area is progressive. That led you to title this episode Close to Home, because it is close to you.
Yeah.
I've never been up in the New England way. To me, the states look very small, certainly compared to Ohio and absolutely compared to California, where I live now, because California is massive. You are fairly close to this?
Yeah, it's
Salem?
I'm about 2 hours to 2.5 hours away from Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that's scary. I don't want that around me. Now, to each their own on what they believe, but, there's certain things that obviously are no good, since everything I believe in can't stand what they're believing in.
Well, and that's so. I guess one quote in the article, I looked at two different articles, and so I may be combining them unjustly here, and you'll have to forget. I looked at the Boston Globe's article, I looked at the New York Times article, which were different, and then I looked at the Get Religion site. So I may be cross-pollinating here, but one article ended with a guy saying, as long as they leave people alone that want to be left alone, I'm fine with it, which in my opinion is the American way, and really
right.
is, we're starting to move into analysis a little bit, but really is the godly way. I mean, God, as far as we can tell, has given us free will. There are some that tend to deny that, but all evidence points out that we are free will agents. We tend to think that we have control of our actions, and God wants us to make the right choice, but he never compels us, forces us to make the right choice. He leads us into making the right choice, but we have the option of making the wrong choice. So I think that option has to be there. I am a big believer, and I forget who said it, but somebody said, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. That is the way America used to be. I think that's the way America ought to be. Religious freedom means religious freedom, means
right.
Freedom for Christians of every type, Catholic, Protestant, fundamental, etc. Freedom for Mormons, Jehovah's Witness, freedom for Muslims, freedom for the non-religious or the irreligious, which is a little more loaded of a term.
Yeah.
But it is. So that has to be applied across the board. Before we get into that too deeply, though, what do you know about Satanism and what do you think about Satanism? I mean, I guess maybe that's a way, when you just hear the word, what do you think? Because, starting with, I suppose, the 70s, when you had what Jason Henderson of the Castle of Horror podcast calls horror chic, with Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and The Omen, these kind of high class and well received horror movies. But starting about that time, you had this Satanism, I suppose, coming into the mainstream. I mean, again, if you go back to the Salem witch trials, I've read some of Cotton Mather's stuff that is talked about in the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Mm-hmm. I've read or I've heard read some accounts of other witch trials, and the prevalent belief seems to be, not a woman doing a spell and influencing things around her, but a woman cavorting with Satan,
right? The
devil, an actual evil persona in some way. And I think it was Jason Henderson in his podcast. He said, at the Oscars, the year that Rosemary's Baby came out, you had, a choir performing this song on national television where they're saying, "Hail Satan."
I know it.
And
nothing
he
like
say,
Ruth Gordon on there going, "Why didn't you know that the devil was going to be in the baby? You should have known. You picked it up, saw the eyes, the teeth, the rar, and there you go."
Have you ever seen Rosemary's Baby, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
I gave up on it.
It was so stupid, but it was so funny at the same time.
Once you see Ruth Gordon sans clothing, then I was, you really lost.
You're satanic. Enjoy.
Not something a pastor should say. That's me. I had to apologize. But it was a shock that all of a sudden here's these elderly folks in the all together, But in any case, so Henderson, I think, or somebody on that show said, I can imagine, fundamentalist Christians being able to make their case that, hey, here goes the nation when you're on national TV saying hail Satan. But, so we have these impressions of, when I was a kid, like I said, urban legends about, hitchhiking women being picked up and becoming human sacrifices. And so what do you think?
All right, first I'm going to do what I know and then move into think.
Okay.
If I may.
No, that's fine, because what you're saying is, what I meant by what you think is just what assumptions you have, but now you're moving on to evaluation. So you want to give me
what I know growing up and what I thought of Satanism in itself. I've had issues like I knew nothing of it until one day, my buddy Joe, myself, my brother, and another guy that we used to hang out with named Ken. We used to love going places at night and walking around and doing whatever. And we would take the video camera with us in case something stupid would come up. And this is back in the day when video cams were, brand new. We had the big RCA that looked like a television camera, and it was still new. It was just new to be able to videotape yourself and then go home and watch it and be like, oh, look at the face you made. There wasn't any cell phones and all that stuff, so you could easily take pictures. So we were out and about one night, and we went by a graveyard. We thought we'd take a shortcut. No plans to videotape any nighttime grave stuff or do any ghost hunting. Nothing like that ever came to mind. And then all of a sudden, there were cops everywhere. Everywhere. This is something I should have used for dumb things when I was a kid.
I was just thinking the same thing. Kids. Why did this not come up in the previous podcast?
I never thought about it until now. We went aside. Now, luckily, my buddy Joe had just started working as a volunteer fire department guy. So he knew some of the cops. Thank God. Because if he didn't, we would have been arrested for satanic rituals performed at the cemetery, because 4 other guys with a video camera had just finished hacking up a chicken and smearing blood all over headstones and putting pieces of the chicken in front and doing these stupid prayers and all this stuff. And they thought it was us. Now, that was my first thought ever. I thought it was always just the movies. All that stuff was just in the movies. I never thought that really happened outside. Might have heard stories here and there, but this was the late 80s, and I never thought anything of it. And it really hit me. It struck me that, wow, people believe that stuff and live that stuff to the extent of actually doing evil things to life, to improve their own belief. And that's terrible. And the feelings I had were of not just fear, there's always that fear, but sadness for the soul of the person that is stuck in that realm. There was anger for the poor innocent creature, whether it's chicken or human, that has to go through that. And it was just gross at the same time. Above all else, it was just a disgusting, almost the same thing you get when someone goes, hey, do you want some more Brussels sprouts? No, thanks, man. That tastes like crap, and I don't want to chew on that again. So it was that type of thing. And then later on was things like, seeing Rosemary's Baby for the first time, The Exorcist, which possession movies are a trend even now. It seems possession also in all the B movies you find on Netflix. There's always a possessed movie in them. It's just constant because it's a go-to. It's like an easy thing to make, and it seems like fun for the people making the movie. And that doesn't bother me so much. But what bothers me so much is people will come out of that thinking it's real. That, and one show we should talk about exorcism, but people think that it's really that thick that all of a sudden you're writhing around and you become disfigured, and then you seem to do things that you could never do even in gymnastics as a kid, and then all of a sudden you're spouting Latin. Don't really think that's possible, but at the same time, there's people out there that believe that, and they will strictly hope for that, and that's disturbing. Right. Again, back to the Brussels sprout taste. Can't take that. I just think that's disgusting.
No, so you've gone a little far and wide, but that's okay, because I think we have a couple of different things here. One is that we have this group, which really what they're saying is they don't have any supernatural belief whatsoever. They don't believe there is a literal persona, Satan, the devil, They just believe that Satan is a story, which to them is a positive story rather than a negative story, which represents the individual asserting his will over the will of a God, a creator, society, what have you. So you've got this unsupernatural, I guess, anti-supernatural wing of Satanism. I do think you have, though, something that you describe. I mean,
the extreme.
And I understand, again, one thing that Jason Henderson in the Castle Horror podcast, him and his friends seem to have been deeply affected by the satanic panic of the 80s, of people saying, heavy metal is going to lead to Satan worship and suicide and murder and Dungeons, Dragons, all that stuff. And I understand. There was a satanic panic. I lived through it as well.
Right.
I can't help but believe, though, that there's got to be some reality to the urban legends. I mean, the urban legends are urban legends, but I mean, you just described a reality that springs from those.
Right.
We had kids in my school that were goth or were punk or whatever, and
I learned steampunk recently.
Yeah, steampunk didn't exist back in the cyberpunk did, but steampunk didn't exist in my days. But I don't get the steampunk. Don't dig it so much.
Yeah,
but
no, I don't either. But I think it's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. Mm-hmm. But they got into some stuff. So it's to me, it's undeniable that there is some. This type of Satanism in this article is merely a philosophy, merely a way of life. There has to be those that take it to some other extreme, though, which is even more distasteful. I think, isn't there like sangria or something? Isn't that like a mixture of Christianity and voodoo? And there's some sort of chicken sacrifices.
I thought that was just a drink.
Yeah, there's a drink too. I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's something like sangria. It's probably not sangria. It's
Samhanism?
Santeria, maybe. I'm not exactly sure.
That's a place in California.
Yeah, it's. I
honestly have no clue, but I can imagine that, and I'm sure what you're trying to say is existent, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So, it's like the serpent in the rainbow. Remember the serpent in the rainbow? But we have a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're keying in on one side of the spectrum that I think most people would find distasteful. Most people are going to find animal sacrifice of any kind distasteful, particularly when it's done in a particularly insidious manner. So, I think there's a difference between their animal sacrifices and the ritual sacrifices of the Jewish temple, But there's this other more intellectual side where, Satan is not a person. He's a metaphor for individualism. And so that's what we practice, individualism. So that's what we're really dealing with here. But we're kind of acknowledging the whole spectrum exists. And that then leads us into the next part of the podcast, I think.
And now it's time for the spiritual application.
All right, so the spiritual application is where we discuss how the cultural artifact touches or affects, influences positively or negatively our walks with God. Do you want to take any swipe at that first, or do you want me to?
I'll jump in here. I'll tell you what it does for me. Absolutely nothing. It gets bypassed as if it was a bug in a rug. And I basically step on it and move along. I can't imagine, it really fumes me a little bit, but I can't imagine something even subtle where if you start a Church of Satan, how you cannot get deeper into something as you go. Because in my mind, hailing something so evil cannot just end at recognition. I look at it this way. If I am a Christian and I believe in God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus, I'm going to do things that help people, give to people who have less, do things that help improve people's lives and make things better, and enjoy things that are beautiful more, and all of that because I want to live the life of a good Christian. If you are into something dark like the Church of Satan or something evil like that, you will want to do things to improve what you're doing in that. And that, to me, would take your soul someplace disturbing and make you do things that would have to just turn you into that Brussels sprout. It's just, I can't put it any better. No,
what you're saying is you become what you worship.
Yeah.
Which we know is an absolute truth. And there's a movie called Dagon, which I saw edited. I guess the unedited version, there's a lot of unedifying things that I don't need to be seeing. Women, again, sans clothing that maybe are a little more shapely than Ruth Gordon, perhaps. But I saw the edited version on Sci-Fi Channel, and what you have there is people worshiping this fish god, Dagon, and they start to turn aquatic themselves. One lady's got octopus tentacles instead of legs, and they're getting gills. I mean, it's crazy stuff. I think there was a Gordon involved in it. I think it was Stuart Gordon who did a lot of the H.P. Lovecraft. It is based on an H.P. Lovecraft story. But the Bible also talks about that. So a little-known book of the Bible, Zephaniah, is basically the entire book is about judgment upon the southern nation of Judah, which had abandoned God for idols. And the prophet's point in the first part of the book is, you worshipped Molech, you worshipped Chemosh, you worshipped, these gods that demanded human sacrifices, and you started to become cruel, mean, hateful, stingy, etc. So it is true that you become what you worship. Now, do you think that's true, though? I mean, I just want to push you a little bit, because we're in agreement, but I do want to push you a little bit.
Please.
This group, again, says there is no supernatural. So they're not literally saying, hey, Dark Lord of the Underworld, what can I do to please you? They're just saying, there is no supernatural, but as a metaphor, we like the Satan story, and we're going to, incorporate that in our philosophy. Do you think there's still that danger of you become what
there is? Because especially when you get younger people in there that know nothing, and you don't explain to them what your road is that you're taking, they're going to start messing around on the outskirts of that road, and they're just going to end up doing something terrible. And of course, when that happens, of course, you will not claim responsibility for it, because it is my fault that they did that. That was something they chose to do. And then all of a sudden, that whole thing about free will becomes their crutch to try to keep them out of jail, I guess. But
right.
It's weird. It's a really thick subject, a very thick subject to discuss. So it's kind of hard. But
I like the term you just used, though, the road.
Yeah.
Or path, right? And so you said, this is the road you're on. Well, that's the way our Lord described it. The Lord said, there's the broad way and there's the narrow way. And he further said, I am the way. I don't think life is measured in individual acts. You sinned, you cussed, you stole, you committed adultery, whatever, therefore you're a bad person. But I do think life is a trajectory. Right. And that was kind of Lewis's point in The Great Divorce. What he was saying is life is not a circle where you just keep getting the same chances over and over again. Life is a road, and as you keep taking fork after fork after fork, eventually, if you took this fork way back here, by the time you get way further up the road, you're so far away from the original path, you can't get back to it even if you want to, and you probably won't want to. Right. So I think what you're trying to express there, which I do think is legitimate, whether you're dealing with the intellectual Satanism or you're dealing with the occultic Satanism, is that
it's still
it puts you on it puts you on a road, it puts you on a trajectory, and it's going to take you somewhere that really ultimately isn't going to be healthy for you. So I would certainly agree with that.
Yeah, and it's just strange to me that. Nowadays, people can believe what they want. Like you said, we are in America. But it's amazing that even that was somebody in zoning should have, said this is not a good idea to have this church put here. Somebody in the bank that authorized the loan they all might be members. They all might be the Ruth Gordons of those establishments, but it's funny that it made it that far, and it's allowed. It's weird. I don't know if that's just the naive little boy in me, but it's just so weird that made it all the way to 2.5 hours away from me. It's just weird. It does not make sense. And I really thought that, especially nowadays with the intelligence of people, that it would have been the other way. And it's weird that even exists on the East Coast to me. So, yeah.
Well, did you hear a somewhat similar related vein in Norway or Finland or Sweden or what? I have a very large difficulty distinguishing between those countries.
It's the spelling. It's mostly the spelling.
That's mostly the word. Yeah, they're building a temple to Thor.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and it's against the same thought, where, hey, we don't believe there's really a Thor, but we like the metaphor, and we want to go back to our pagan roots and abandon Christianity and so forth. So,
but Thor is well, never mind.
Thor is more palatable to you than Satan is?
Well, because Disney owns Thor now.
Oh, wow, yeah. So he can't be that bad,
It can't be that bad. There'll be a little mouse on his shoulder. Never mind.
Talk about religion being a business. I watched some documentary. I think it was about hell. I'm not sure. It was on Netflix. And they went to some death metal festival and asked them what they thought of Christianity. And the guy said, well, the church is just another business, isn't it? Well, there you go. If Thor is owned by Disney, then really, because let me tell you, we've got a Disney store in our mall. And my daughter, every time we go to the mall, can we go in the Disney store? And I was like, well, we ain't buying nothing, because your dad's a frugal Scotsman and he buys everything off eBay. But
a frugal Scotsman.
Yeah, the
coming
frugal
to Scotsman. A theater near you.
But I mean, you talk about racketeering.
Yeah.
You talk about taking a property and milking it for all it's worth. And you're correct. Now Disney owns a pagan god.
No, that's true.
So they really are able to milk it for all it's worth.
That's true.
So I do agree with you, what you're saying. You're still focused more on the occultic Satanism than the intellectual Satanism. But there is something more to us here than just us versus them. I think there is something more to your assessment, and then I'm going to get into mine. There's something more than just, hey, this is the team that's not our team, and therefore we hate them and look down upon them and want to defeat them. You are saying, I believe this road goes to a bad place.
I do.
Yeah.
I really, truly do.
I think is a legitimate assessment, and so I think that's a good insight. I've got a couple other insights, though, that things that just came to me as I was reading the article. You want to... Interested? You want to let me unleash?
I would love for you to unleash, and I will comment if I may too.
Oh, okay, absolutely. So, couple things that hit me. First of all, the founder of this satanic temple really thinks he has pulled a coup. Based on my reading of this article, by planting this church, establishing this church, this temple in Salem, because he apparently sees Salem as being some sort of, if not bastion of fundamentalism, Christian fundamentalism, at least symbol of Christian fundamentalism because of the witches that were killed there. He said, I don't see it in the article that I'm looking at right in front of me, but I think in one of the others, he said they were progressive, that the city had progressed enough now to allow Satanism into it. So a couple of things there. First of all, I think this guy's assessment of the Salem witch trials are largely, again, most people are going to look at that as Christian fundamentalists went wacko and killed a bunch of people for no reason. I actually read a little history on this. I think it was in a book called Death Takes a Holiday or Death Makes a Holiday, a history of Halloween. And the guy said, hey, a lot of the people getting killed in the Salem witch trials wasn't for religious reasons at all. It was, you own a field I want. Much like Jezebel in the Bible, where Naboth owned the field she wanted, so she got him killed. It was, you own a field I want. So Witchcraft, there's a witch, and now I get your field. So you're blaming that on people's faith, when in reality it's only tangentially related to their faith, if related to their faith at all.
There's another story, too, that talks about the children that started the rumor that one of the people was a witch, and instead of coming out and saying that they made it up, they started believing it so much, the kids did, that they were pointing at people saying that they were witches, and people were killed because of a lie, because of the fact that the kids believed that these people were witches, but they didn't want to admit that they committed a sin by lying because of the Puritan belief. So they, unfortunately, watched as parents and other people were killed as witches.
So really what I think you see in that story and in the account that I'm giving, I don't think it's Christian fundamentalism, unreasonable Puritans killing people they don't understand, as much as it is just human. If it's related to Christianity at all, if it's related to the faith at all, it's only tangentially related. The faith is, unfortunately, made up of humans.
Yeah.
And humans are stupid and misguided and make tons of terrible, terrible mistakes. Being Christian doesn't prevent that. Hopefully it steers you away from that if you allow the Lord to lead you, but not everybody that's in the Lord's family allows him to lead them. So, you're going to have these things that are tangentially related to Christianity. But my question is, did this happen because these people were Christians, or did this happen because these people were people?
Right.
And my opinion is this happened because these people
are people.
Are people. They're Christian people, which may mitigate some things sometimes, but they're still people.
Yeah.
And that's what, you get this atheist argument. Richard Dawkins has said I don't think he said there would be no war if there wasn't any religion, but he said there'd be a greater chance of less war or no war if there were no religion. That I can document. I can prove that he said that. Here in San Francisco, here in California, we had a guy almost killed because of his baseball team. I
can imagine.
He was wearing the wrong hat in the wrong stadium and got beat and handicapped for life. We're all very aware that happened here. Many things. I'm afraid to go to Raiders Stadium because I've seen people hauled out in cuffs. I've seen videos of people being stabbed. I took my dad to a Raiders game and I said, "Hey, you're wearing Raiders gear because I don't want you shot." So to say, oh, it's Christianity that resulted in this, and now we have this great coup because we're going into this Christian bastion and planting a satanic temple, I'm not so sure your assessment is accurate.
I think also, just like what you said with the football thing, I think it's just, if you believe in something so much and the other person doesn't, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back to the two cavemen sitting across from each other. One looks at the other one and throws a rock at his head. That's the first war.
Yeah, there you go.
That is the very first war. And the other one was like, "Ugh, why you throw a rock at me?" And he goes, "Thug, I don't like the way you look." And then all of a sudden, "I don't like the way you look." And then
there we go.
Meteor destroys planet. Shake it like an Etch-a-Sketch. Let's start over.
Yeah. And, so, no, what you're saying is even conflicts couched in religious reasons aren't really religious conflicts. And that's really what I believe.
Yeah.
I think you got to look at did Jesus kill anybody? Did Jesus convert anybody with the sword? Did Jesus say kill everybody who doesn't believe what we believe? No. He's the founder. He's the one you look at. He's the one you evaluate the movement, the faith on, not his misguided followers who either because they're misunderstanding or because they're wicked, even though they take his name, do terrible things. You got to base it on him, and he didn't kill anybody. So The second thing in this arena is that this guy thinks he's progressive. Well, whenever you use that word progressive, what are you implying? You're implying there's a standard somewhere that you are progressing to.
Yes.
You're implying that there is some absolute right or good that you are trying to match. My question is, where did that come from?
And how far does that progression go?
Yeah, and are you really progressing? Are you sure you're not actually regressing? If you're going to say something is progress, then you have to defend how it is progress, why it is progress. Mm-hmm. Well, why is this progress? What is progressive about it? I don't see how there can be any type of progression apart from the existence of a God.
Right.
Because if we are random chance, if we are the product of purely material evolution, and that there is, that which is, again, what the hardcore new atheists are going to say, not just, hey, we don't believe in God or we don't like church, but we believe there is no spiritual side of life, period. Right. There is nothing but material. If that is the case, then hate is the same as love. Yeah. If I shake your hand or I stab you in the back, neither is bad, neither is good, neither is progressive or regressive. They're just things that happen. In order for there to be progress, there has to be a standard by which progress is measured. And that standard would have to be a higher power, a higher good. It can't just be,
well said. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't just be this makes me feel good. Okay, well, that makes you feel good. Great. Hey, maybe, kicking midgets makes me feel good. Should I go do that? Well, no, you shouldn't. Well, why? Now you have to explain why I shouldn't.
There's no money in it.
There's no money in kicking midgets?
Not at all.
So.
No, and even saying the word midget, you should say little people. But
yeah, I know. That's an insensitive word, and I apologize. But I was trying to the McCoy way, the Scots way is that I come up with these absurd analogies. It's
I love it.
To be absurd.
Don't change.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I said it.
But I don't want to say no. But the reason that I went there, because I don't want to say anything vile like, hey, rape a woman. I don't want to go that vile, even though that is the natural result of that way of thinking.
Yep.
If there is no right or wrong, then why not murder, rape, steal, pillage, loot, oppress, enslave? Why not? If there is no right or wrong.
Crime and justice are the same thing.
They are. And so if you're going to tell me that there is a wrong, if you're going to tell me there's progress, then you have to tell me by what standard it's progress. I think that standard can only be a good God.
That's right.
So not the individualism. I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable there. Not the individualism, I should say, that's being espoused by this Church of Satan. Final thing that I caught, though. So sorry, you're still hung up on my incorrect syllabalism.
No, that was pretty good. Go on, though. That was funny.
So the final thing I caught, and this is where I think this is the crux of the matter. This is the hinge of the whole incident there. Let me see if I can find, because I want to give the exact quotation. He says, dating back centuries, Satanism has been misunderstood by wide swaths. Now, there's a good word, swaths. Not too many people use that word. Wide swaths of American society, Greaves said. Greaves is the Satanist planning this temple. Right. Satanists do not worship an antichrist or any other deity. Rather, Satanism preaches independent thought and using evidence-based science as a basis for understanding the world, and views Satan as a literary figure representing an eternal struggle against authoritarianism. So notice what he's saying there. We are anti-authoritarian. Our ideal is that you resist authority. And yet, by what basis does he say he resists authority? Science and evidence-based reason. So what has he really done? He thinks he has rejected authority. He has not rejected authority. He has simply chosen a different authority.
Yep.
He has chosen to make science, whatever that word means, because that word is pretty vague and used in a lot of ways in our world today, but science and reason to justify this anti-authoritarianism. So that has become his authority.
It's like his rug that he uses to lift up and sweep everything under, so he can continue his.
Yeah, exactly. Which is your, if you ask me, Doug, what do you have an authority? Do you submit to an authority? I will say absolutely. My authority is God. I believe he has put a great deal of that authority in the scriptures. So that is what I am turning to justify or condemn me, to direct my actions, my thoughts, my beliefs, etc. This guy is saying, I have nothing like that. I have nothing that justifies or condemns me. I have nothing that directs my thoughts. You're wrong, sir. You do. You have just failed to acknowledge it for being what it is. You've called it by this popular term that's used today, science, as if science doesn't say anything about God. There are plenty of scientists that believe science points to a creator. Yeah. Anthony Flew, who was an eminent atheist for years, finally came to believe, well, there has to be something out there, right? So, A, you've got this, you're turning to a different authority. B, you're assuming the authority says there's no God, when in reality the authority might be saying there's a God. Right. So, right. But I think the bigger point is that you've just taken a different authority. Even if you say I don't follow any authority, I only follow myself. Well, what then have you become? Your own authority.
True.
Right. So to say that I live anti-authoritarian, to say that I reject all authority, that's impossible. Everybody has an authority. The question is merely what authority have you chosen? Yeah.
What road
this
are you
guy,
on?
Yeah, this guy has, and what road are you on? We're back to your analogy and Jesus's analogy. This guy's chosen a different road than me. And literally, it does come down to choice. Belief, faith, always has an element of choice to it. So I'll prove it to you. You want me to prove it to you?
I would love it. Okay,
so when I was in Bible college, I had a free afternoon, and we had a little pond on our campus. And I borrowed a friend's fishing pole, and I went and fished in this pond. And I'm not a good fisherman, but I caught this huge bass. And I didn't know how to get it in. I could tell it was huge. I saw him jump out of the water. I thought I could drag him along the mud and pull him up to shore. When I did that, I took slack off the line, and he slipped and got away. Okay. Now, Kevin, did I catch a fish or didn't I? Am I telling you the truth, or am I telling you a lie? What do you believe?
I believe that you caught that fish.
Why?
Because you told me that you caught the fish and you have not lied to me.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So you do have some evidence. Doug has been honest with me so far. Ultimately, though, if you go far enough down in that, really, you're just making a choice, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
You're just choosing, I believe Doug, rather than not believe Doug.
Right.
It's the same when it comes to our faith. It's the same when it comes to his faith. He's looked at the possible authorities that are out there, and he's chosen a different way. And if you have faith in science, you do truly have faith in science, because you didn't go do the experiments.
Right.
You didn't do the archaeological digs. You didn't sift through the strata and the data and yourself come to this conclusion that the Earth is 14 billion years old and that all life has evolved from a complex, or, your teacher told you that and you believed him.
Right? That's something that I talk about a lot with family. I tell them, where did you learn this? And they heard it on TV, so it must be true, whatever the topic is. Yeah. And I'm like, but what do you think? Well, I think what the TV told me. No. What do you think? Like, what does your soul tell you? And then all of a sudden, everything had to be rethought.
So,
same aspect.
We follow authorities all the time without ever realizing
it.
When I was a kid in school, doctors said apples were bad. So everybody believed that apples were going to give you cancer, right? Because they listened to the authority. So everybody, even those that claim to have no authority, and even if they honestly, if you had I don't think there's anybody like this. I think this is theoretical. But if you had somebody who honestly followed nobody but himself or herself, they would still be following themselves. They would be their own authority. And to cobble a line from Charlie's Angels 2, I'm probably the only preacher that's going to do that. But in Charlie's Angels 2, I think Demi Moore tells the girls on I work for myself, and they tell her, well, then your boss sucks. I would like to say, if you are your own authority, your authority sucks. If you're your own God, your God sucks. Until you can raise the dead, I'm not going to believe that you're a very good God for yourself.
Right. Well, I'll read you the lyrics from Rush's Freewill.
Okay, there we go.
Here's an example. You can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. You can choose from phantom fears and kindness that can kill. I will choose a path that's clear. I will choose free will.
Now, who is this? What is this?
That's Freewill by Rush. The band Rush.
Oh, Rush. The band. Okay. Yeah. So you're up close to the Canadians as well. Yeah. So you're I thought you said Russia's Freewill.
Oh, no. Rush. The band Rush.
Yeah. Rush is Russia. Very close. But no, he said, even to not choose is to make a choice.
Right.
And this is correct. So let's quote another source that maybe a whole lot of preachers don't quote. But The Matrix, I love The Matrix and I love the sequels. Mm-hmm. And, in the sequel, Morpheus tells the Merovingian everything starts with choice. And Neo tells the architect the problem is choice. This is really what it all comes down to. What do you choose based on either good evidence or spurious evidence? What do you choose to submit to as an authority? Everybody chooses something. You need to choose something good.
That's right. And now, the moral of the show. And now, we're going to discuss the moral of the show. The bottom line is?
Choose your authority wisely.
Very true. Very true.
Yes. So if you want to, if we want to go 3 for 3 with movie references, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, he has chosen poorly. Yeah. You have an authority. It certainly affects the way that you live this life. I believe it's going to affect what comes after this life, which is more than just going to heaven when you die, which is, entering the kingdom of God, something far beyond just going to heaven when you die.
Right.
So, understand that you do have an authority. Understand that you are making choices based on the acceptance or rejection of authority, and choose wisely. That's the moral. This guy has made his church, his beliefs, his actions sound good. I believe I can see through them and that they aren't as good. They aren't exactly what he says they are, or maybe even thinks they are. I think he's chosen poorly, and I think the wise choice is to acknowledge that there is a God in heaven, submit to his authority. Yep, there's submission, opposite of what Satan did, but I believe there's family, acceptance, love, and blessing there as well that you don't really find in individualism.
Do you think that he's he has no clue, but that he is being used as a tool, as a conductor for this type of belief?
Yes, it's always hard to guess what's going on in people's minds, and I don't really want to do that. But I do. So what you're saying is he aware of his logical inconsistency and proceeding anyway, or is he unaware of his logical inconsistency?
I think he's unaware.
Yeah, I think most people, and again, not that I, by any stretch of the imagination, think that I'm smarter, superior, better. I think I've just listened. I think God has spoken to me, and I've listened, albeit imperfectly, and that's the difference between me and those that don't listen. But I do think it's true, and I would include myself in this category, that we humans don't think very deeply about the things we say. I think mostly we just do what we want to do and find a way to justify it. And I can't remember if I quoted this scripture last time or not, but Jeremiah says the heart is deceitful above all things. Who can understand it? And what he's talking about is the heart will find a way, the head will find a way to justify what it wants to justify.
Right.
So if you want to walk away from God, whether you actually don't believe in him or you do believe in him and don't like him and want something different, you will find a way to justify that. That's probably where this guy is. I don't know that he's, full-blown evil and has said, I'm going to lead people astray, but I don't think he's thought, when he says, hey, I don't have an authority, and I say, oh, yep, you actually do, and you just stated it right here in this paper, I don't think he's thought deeply enough about the decisions he's making, or as you say, the path that he is taking.
And my moral of this show would be, if you do get stuck down a road like that, where this gentleman obviously is, and you have any inkling that maybe this is the wrong way to go, listen to that. Listen to your heart. Don't think too much with your head. Just think with your heart and pay attention to it. And I'm very sure that the right road will be presented to you if you want to see it.
I believe the Lord continues to go after his people. That's what he says in Amos chapter 4.
That's right.
I kept coming, I kept coming, I kept coming. And hopefully the Lord will come for this fella. I don't want to hate him. Jesus wouldn't hate him, so I don't want to hate him either. I just think he's making a poor choice.
That's right. I have a quick question before I tell you
Sure.
the closing hymn.
Absolutely.
Did you really catch that bass?
I did really catch that bass.
Woo-hoo!
And it drives me crazy. I mean, again, there's no way to prove it. The guys in the dorms did not believe me and made fun of me, but I had this huge fish. Mostly you saw people pull bluegill out of this pond.
Right.
I pulled this huge bass. I kid you not. As a man of God, I speak the truth.
I don't even.
And I thought, because I'm not an angler, I'm not a fisherman, I thought I could drag it up. And I think what happened when I did that is Slack got in the line and he slipped the hook somehow because he was fighting, but he was big, and it just kills me to this day because people don't believe me. I'm like the crazy old guy with a picture of the Loch Ness Monster, sitting in the back of the pub with his whiskey saying, I saw him. I've got the picture right here.
Did you call the bass Nessie by chance?
I did not. I should. I would have called her Nessie Jr., Nessie 2. But, yeah, I did really catch that.
Cool.
Well, I guess I didn't really I got it on the line. I didn't
that
really
counts as
catch
catching,
it.
though.
Yeah, because if I would have caught it, it would be above my mantle right now.
Turning left, singing Jingle Bells every Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. I would have rigged it up with one of those, take me to the river.
And speaking of hymns.
Yes, there we go. There's our transition.
Tonight's closing hymn is Ave Maria by Schubert from 1852. I love this song. It's a beautiful song, and it pulls me in close. This song and another one, Aaron G., are two songs that just make me float like the breeze. So that's my ending hymn choice for this evening.
I'm a fan of Ave Maria.
Yep.
Every time I hear it, I wish I was Catholic. So, yeah, great hymn for us to close on, bud.
All right. So enjoy Ave Maria and join us in a couple of weeks for the next Pastor and the Pappy.
All of Zerbinator's music and podcasts are under the Creative Commons license, which allows retelling and rebroadcasting as long as the author is notified and credited. For more great escape pods, please visit www.zerbinator.wordpress.com. If you would like to contact Zerbinatorland, you can send an email to instrumentally@gmail.com or give us a call at 571-408-ZERB or 9372.
You're not progressive, Kevin.
No.
They're looking for progressive people.
I'm more Allstate.